where the leaves have a lot of spines on them or a lot of thorns, they are not cacti. And then plants without leaves and with spiny stem ends, they are also not cacti. So what is a cactus? That's a plant with a what they call an areole. It's a growth point which is all over the stem of the cactus. That defines a cactus. Cactus do have leaves, and some of the early pads of a prickly pear, they have a leaf coming out of the areole. So cactus do have leaves, but you hardly see them. And also in this cholla you see that the new sections of the plants, they have a leaf which will fall off. But cactus do have leaves. And of course this is also a cactus, but it looks like a leafy plant. But they have the other characteristic, and that is areole. And areoles are the growth points of a cactus. So these fuzzy white balls, those are areoles. And from the areoles we get spines, we get other stems, we get flowers, everything grows from the areole. And that is the only defining feature of what is a cactus. They have areoles, growth points, where everything grows from. So you don't find flowers or spines coming out of the stem right here. They come out of the areole, which is those points, and also branches, and the fruits and the flowers, everything sits in areoles. This is a close-up. So that's the areole, just an opening in the stem. So those pads of a prickly pear, they are not leaves, they are stems. They are just flat stems that look maybe in leaf shape. But they are stems, and they have those areoles, openings, from which spines and flowers. In prickly pears you have two types of spines. You have the regular large spines and the tiny ones, which we call glochids, which are easily attached to anything, to your skin. You just look at them and you have those things. And they are nasty, difficult to remove. And here you see that the flower buds, they all originate at the areoles. So that is the most important feature of a cactus. And even if they have leaves, like the primitive cacti, it is defined by the areole. So the areoles are born on the stem in or near the axils of the leaves. So here we have the leaves, and just in the armpit, let's say, of the leaf, that's where the areole is. So most cacti don't show leaves, so you don't know where the leaves are located, but they're all over the stem, and the areoles are over the stem. And cacti always grow from the top of the stem. And in prickly pears, the new pads, you see very clearly the leaves, but before that pad is fully grown, all the leaves have fallen off. And then you have a pad like this with spines or no spines, depending on the species. And when you have in the areole itself, the spines usually grow from the lower part of the areole. So in the lower part is the part facing away from the top of the plant. And the flowers, they are born from the upper part of the areole. So when you have an elongated areole, then the flower bud comes at the top or closest to the apex, the top of the plant. So the plant grows from here So the top of the areole is on that side, even though that sometimes when the ribs goes down, it's the lower part of the areole, but it is closest to the growing apex of the plant. And here, in Echinocereus, like the Clara cup, the flower buds, they do originate from the areole, but from the part of the areole that is under the skin. So the flower buds, they break through the skin just above the areole in our Clara cups. But you can see here, but the flower is still originating from the areole, so it breaks through the skin just above the areole, the visible part of the areole. So Phaerocactus and some other cacti, they have a third organ in the areole, and those are the secretory little spines, which are not spiny but just little knobs in the central part of the areole. So we have the flower part, we have the spiny part, and in between we have those secretory
nectaries, the extrafloral nectaries.
Nectaries, and they produce a kind of sugary substance that attracts ants, and the ants will prevent any other insect to feed on the cactus, so the kind of protection for the cactus. And here you see the ants sucking off the juice or whatever they produce. And in the meantime, those ants run over the whole plant and they will kill any insect that they want to eat. So it is just a protection for the plant. So this is the areole. This is the flower parts. You see this, the flower coming up, and these are the spine parts. And those.
That's a great video. Awesome.
I'm curious. I don't know if someone else, or I'm the only one who have found those attractive for wasps too.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Those are attractive for wasps too because they love it.
Yes.
What? Wasps?
Yeah, a lot of insects like the juicy stuff, but they go for the ants because ants eat all the other bugs from the plant. So like barrel cactus, they get very old and they don't want any insects boring holes in it, and then all that effort is for nothing. Well, the cactus flowers are also something different than a regular flower. In a regular flower we have petals and sepals, but that is kind of combined in the cactus. So we have the corolla, but the calyx, like here, we don't have. So therefore they call these the tepals. But everybody just calls them flowers. And the ovary is down from the tepals in the stem of the flower, and that's where the seeds originate. So first ovules, and then they get pollinated, and these just bulge up into fruits later on.
So you're saying that although we call them flowers, they're really not a
It's
flower?
not a flower like in most other plants. It is just a kind of stem, they say, inflorescence. Yeah. But it's just semantics, I think, because everybody calls them flowers. And yeah, the fruits, the buds, they also have scales on them, which is also not found in regular flowers.
Is that more because it's a protection because of the
Yeah,
weather?
and also for drying out,
Okay.
because the flowers most of them are pollinated by insects, so they have to open during the hottest time of day, so that you don't want to lose a lot of moisture from your flowers. So they open, and then at night they close again, and they may open another time, but they bloom only 1 or 2 days, most cactus flowers. So there is 2 subfamilies of cactus in Texas. We have the Opuntiodiae. Those are the prickly pears and the choyas and the dog choyas. And we have the Cactoidae, which are the other cactus. So we have prickly pears and choyas, and we have the other cactus, which are the other subfamily. So these are the 2 subfamilies that we have in Texas. So the Opuntiodiae, they have some features that are found just in them. They have stems in segments. So what a lot of people call leaves of the prickly pear, they are just stems which are put on top of each other. And usually they grow only 1 stem per season, and maybe a second stem when there's enough rain in August. But usually you have only 1 new pad a year on top of an old pad. Also, when on the new growth, you see the leaves still in the areoles, which fall off before it is fully grown up. And when you germinate a prickly pear, it has 2 cotyledons, which look very much like leaves. Quite kind of different with when you germinate a seed from the other subfamily. There you don't see any leaves, it's just a little stick that comes out, and the cotyledons are very tiny.
So technically, could I take the cotyledons and put them and then grow it from there?
No, this is already, the seed was here.
Okay.
And that's the first thing that grows out of the seed.
Okay, thank you.
That is that stem and then the cotyledons. That is the first thing, and then later on, that's where the cactus grows. Grows in between these. Yeah?
Cool picture. Very cool. That's great. So this is very tiny.
Yeah, this is just a few millimeters. And this will, those cotyledons, they will fall off, and then this will just grow a root and settle itself in the soil. And also typical for Opuntia, which you don't find in the other subfamily, are the 2 types of spines. They have the cloacates, and there's a lot of tiny hooks on those spines, so the moment you just do like this, then all the cloacates are on your hands.
We know.
And they don't have ribs. We will see the other plants that most of them have ribs. So these are stem segments, and 1 segment grows per season, and maybe you can have another in August growing after the blooming season, another pad on it. But you can have 3-4 pads per basal pad, so it grows quite quick, even though it grows only 1 stem segment per season. But you can have 4 or 5, and then next year you have 4 or 5 on those 4 or 5. Right. So it grows very quickly. And it was a big problem when they introduced these prickly pears in Australia, because there is no natural enemy of the prickly pear, like insects that bore in them and kill the plant. And they put them down there as fodder for the cattle. And it just grew out of hand. They could not control it until they introduced an insect that would attack those prickly pears, and then they finally got rid of it. But the farmers, they had to leave their farms because it was completely overgrown with prickly pears, and there was no natural control.
Wow.
So the second genus in this Opuntioideae, the subfamily, is the Cylindropuntia, the choyas, and we have the little choya, the Christmas choya, which have nice fruits in the winter. And we have the Grusonia, the dog choya that form mats on the ground. And some of them, they dislodge those segments very easily, so you just pass by it, or animals walk by it, and they take a segment. And when that segment falls off somewhere else, it forms a new plant. It's very easy to multiply that plant. So now we go closer to the Opuntia. We have the stems are just flattened pads or joints or cladodes, and they grow on each other. So at the top of this one, there we get another one, and on top of this one we get the flowers and the fruits, and then maybe another pad. And that's how they grow on. And some of them, they grow higher and higher. Most of them, they don't grow much more than about 3 feet. And others, they prefer to grow prostrate, and they just spread out only 1 or 2 pads high over the ground. They have simple areoles, which just small round areoles, and in there you have the 2 different spines. This is the blind prickly pear. They don't have regular spines, but they do have plenty of glochids, which are so small, looks like little fuzzy balls, but they are mean. So the tubercles, which is just an extension from the stem, and on top sits the areole and the spines, is very common in the Cactoidae, but not in this subfamily. There is one prickly pear where you see a little bit of tubercles, like swellings, but nothing like what you will see later on in the other species.
What species was that on? That prickly pear?
Spinosibacca from Big Bend. Very spiny. When it is dry, they look very ugly, that plant. Yeah, this is the tree choya, the imbricata that we have in the Franklins. They have cylinder-shaped joints. So this is more less than a joint, and then you have another piece that grows next year on it. They have the areoles, lower part of the spine. They do have some glochids, but more serious are the huge spines on the Cylindropuntia. And they have some kind of tubercles, extensions from the stem, but the areoles at the base of it, so it's not at the widest point of the swelling, but at the lower end. And the spines of Cylindropuntia, they have those reverse hooks. They also have sheaths around it. So, but the worst part is the spine inside the sheath. When you get these stuck in your skin, they're very difficult to remove, and some of these species you need pliers to get them out of your skin, because they have those hooks in there. It's difficult to see, but those are those reverse, what do you call them? Barbs in there, that once it goes in easily this way, but it comes out very difficult the other way. The Grusonia, the dog choyas, they form mats on the ground. They never get higher than, I would say, 1 foot is probably the tallest Grusonia, at least in Texas, that you can find. And the one in southern Texas, near Rio Grande City, they form mats, and sometimes you have acres and acres completely full with these Schottii. And they form mats maybe not higher than 2 inches. And it is very difficult to move around there because when you step in it, all those segments stick to your shoes. And that is how they propagate, spread around. They very easily dislodge from the mother plant. But for the rest, it's kind of similar. They have round areoles, flowers in the upper part of the areole. Tubercles, they have tubercles. You see here the extension from the stem, and on top we have the spines, the areole. Sorry, the areole. Okay.